Hello, everybody. Welcome to NJ Thrive Small Business Webinars. Today is Thursday, June 20th, and you are attending one of our weekly webinars created to help New Jersey small business owners start, grow, and thrive. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Uzma. I'm a consultant here at NJSBDC, which stands for New Jersey Small Business Development Centers Network. We are a statewide program powered by the SBA, Small Business Administration, and partners in our state to help small businesses in New Jersey with three main things. And those things are no cost small business consulting, training and events starting at $0, just like this one that you're attending, and exclusive small business resources. If you are new here and this is your first time joining one of our webinars, thank you so much. And we hope you stick with us and enjoy our services and get benefit from them by staying with us for more webinars and our services. And if you have been attending our webinars, if you are one of our clients, thank you so much for your support. We always appreciate it. Go ahead in the chat, everybody, and let us know where you're from, who you are, what you do, anything that will help you network with others that are joining in from wherever you're joining us from. As you can see on the map on the slide, that is the state of New Jersey, of course, and you'll see that there are small logos. That is where our regional centers, 11 regional centers, are located. And we cover all the counties of New Jersey. So if you are ever interested in any events or just seeing where our regional centers are, learn more at njsbdc.com. And yeah, I see the chats coming in. Thank you so much. If you can see me and hear me properly, let us know too. If there is ever any interruption, we'll do our best to troubleshoot. And just one quick thing, if you'd like everyone to see your response, make sure that you're sending the message to everyone instead of just hosts and panelists, unless it is meant for just hosts and panelists. All right, so agenda. We have a couple of headlines to share with you, just things that are happening in the small business community in New Jersey or anywhere else nationwide that you should be aware of. Then we have our presentation from our speaker and then Q&A. So these are the headlines of the week that we'd like to share with you very briefly. All these links will be shared in the chat. Don't worry if I go over them too quickly. Take your own, go over them on your own time. We'll just go through them very briefly. First is a press release from NJEDA, New Jersey Economic Development Authority, released just 2 days ago, over $9 billion in economic impact credited to NJEDA's North Brunswick incubator. Analysis finds the incubator has been an integral resource for New Jersey's life sciences sector and a driver of the state's overall economy. That's awesome to understand, quantify, okay, the impacts. All right, let's see. The incubator is part of the 50-acre research known as the Bioscience Center located on Route 1. All right, there's information about the incubator. I believe when this was first started, or there was some information we had shared about this. All right, New Jersey is home to 14 of the world's 20 largest pharmaceutical companies and more than 400 biotechnology companies. All right, awesome. So congratulations to the Bioscience Center. And if you're ever interested, then definitely check this out and check out where the incubator is. Next, press release also from NJEDA, mixed use development in downtown Newark approved for NJEDA Aspire Awards. This will create much needed housing, support local economy. All right, let's see. The project was approved for up to $74 million in Aspire tax credits, which represents 60% of the project cost of $123.8 million. Okay. So part of the real estate. So those of you in the real estate industry will enjoy this. And third is from Founders First, Innovation Empower Small Business Expansion. So CBC. Pennsylvania, New Jersey Job Creators Grant, a total of $50,000 to be awarded to businesses in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. You can start the application right here. The deadline is June 25, so 5 days from today. 50,000 in small business grants will make investments to 10 diverse-led businesses in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. It's an accelerator program scholarship. Let's see. And these are the eligibility requirements. So make sure that you're reading over this properly. And if you ever have any questions, there is an FAQ somewhere here. All right. And if you ever need help with applying to this grant, always let us know and we can help you do that too. All right, Propelify Innovation Festival. This is powered by Tech United. This happens every year in Hoboken. If you've never been, definitely worth checking out if you're here in the tri-state area. And especially if you are a tech company, this is definitely worth checking out. And this is very special to us as well because we are the official sponsor and we are one of the partners for Propelify. All right, so showcasing the founders, propelling ideas into action, Innovation Festival. This main stage will feature pitches from cutting-edge pre-seed, seed, and Series A startups, as well as talks focused on fundraising and ensuring the next generation of startups succeed. All right, pretty cool. These are the speakers, not just speakers, but all the people who will have a table, past speakers. All right. And this is the agenda. This is in person, of course. And all the information is listed here on this website. So if you're interested in getting a ticket, this is where you would do so. All right, perfect. That concludes our headlines section. Things to keep in mind, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box that's right next to the chat box. If you'd like to receive the slides from our speaker, then please complete a brief survey. And this webinar is being recorded. It will be available on our YouTube channel as well as our video library. The links will be shared in the chat. All right, so Nicole Jacoby, one of our community outreach specialist and resource planning officer at NJDOL, is here today for NJ wage laws for small business success with the New Jersey Department of Labor. Of course, we're doing this topic for the first time, and we're very excited to have Nicole as one of our presenters today. So Nicole, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you so much for doing this for us and for our audience. I will stop sharing. Please go ahead, turn on your camera and share your screen. And thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Uzma. Really excited to be here today with everyone. Looks like we have a great turnout so far. I'm seeing 80 attendees in the audience, so really excited to see the interest in this topic. It's really critical for business owners to understand wage and hour laws and make sure workers are being paid fairly and treated well by their employers so we can support good jobs in New Jersey. So I'll share my screen and get our PowerPoint set up. Just let me know at any time if there is any connection issues or anything that I can adjust with the PowerPoint too. Just keep me updated on how things are going on that end. Perfect, perfect. Okay, so I'll share my screen and just let me know if you're able to see the PowerPoint once I get it loaded up. Okay.
All right, you're able to see it.
Okay, awesome, and I'll make it full screen. Okay, still looking good?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining today. We're really excited to dive into these topics. As Uzma had mentioned and introduced me, my name is Nicole Jacoby. I'm the Community Outreach Specialist for the Wage and Hour Division at the NJ Department of Labor and Workforce Development. So my role is to provide outreach and education to business owners and also to workers too, to help drive compliance with these laws in New Jersey to make sure that we're supporting good jobs and we have a good economy that treats workers well and helps businesses thrive. So we'll dive into these topics. We'll get started here. So before we get into the meat and potatoes of this presentation, I just want to give a quick disclaimer. The presentation is intended as general information only, and it does not carry the force of legal opinion. The laws and regulations can change quickly, so this presentation is really a snapshot of the current status of these laws and compliance with these laws. But please feel free to refer back. As the event organizers had said, they'll be sharing out the slides with you after you complete the survey. So feel free to use it as a resource, but just know that things can change quickly. The New Jersey statutes and administrative code should be consulted for the most accurate and up-to-date legal information. So we don't provide legal advice through our outreach program. We're providing information and education, but we have links to the laws and statutes on our website so you can dive in deeper and see it written in that language, that legal language that's official. We enforce laws to protect all workers, regardless of legal status. An employer cannot withhold payment because an employee does not have a valid social security number or because an employee has not completed a W-4 or an I-9 form. And employers must not retaliate against their workers for exercising their rights or inquiring about their work rights. Okay, so now that we've talked about the disclaimer, we'll give you a little overview of our department, the New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development. We provide a lot of different services, a lot of resources for workers and for employers too. So first up is worker protections. So that includes us in the Division of Wage and Hour Compliance, making sure that workers are getting paid correctly, working the correct amount of hours, if they need to get paid overtime, or if they're taking earned sick leave. We'll talk about all those topics later. That's what our division oversees. We also have worker protections for health and safety. So kind of similar to like you would think of OSHA at the federal level. Our health and safety division works a little bit differently, but they have a voluntary program actually where you can get a consultation as a business owner, and one of their representatives will come out and make sure that your business is compliant with health and safety regulations too. So they do some outreach as well for business owners. Career services, that's really key for business owners. We have business representatives at the one-stop career centers in each county that could meet with you for a one-on-one consultation. You could set up an appointment and they can help connect you with hiring and training programs too. They also help workers who are looking for a new job learn about different kinds of industries. So it's really good to get connected with those business representatives. You can find them on our website. They're in every county in New Jersey. And if you know where the one-stop career center is in the county, feel free to stop by and get some information. We also track labor market information, so understanding the data and the trends that are driving employment in New Jersey. We also manage disability insurance, family leave insurance, unemployment insurance, and Social Security, disability, and more. So there's a lot to our department. We're very big. We're based in Trenton, but we have satellite offices in all of the counties in New Jersey. So wherever you're located, you probably have a satellite office near you. So feel free to peruse our website or reach out to me if you have any questions. I'll put my email in the chat, and I'm sure the event organizers will share it out too. But just wanted to give you an overview of everything that we do. I'll talk about wage and hour today, but there's plenty more, and I'm sure you'll want to discover some of the career services resources too. Okay, so the wage and hour division, and that's where I work. So our presentation today is going to discuss the following requirements for employers, and it's going to include the minimum wage, record keeping, methods of wage payment, overtime, earned sick leave, misclassification, and anti-retaliation. We enforce many more laws in the wage and hour division. This is not an exhaustive list, but I like to think this is probably the most critical information you need to know in a basic overview. We're always happy to come back for another presentation and dive deeper in some of the other laws we enforce and good things that employers should keep in mind. So there's plenty of content to be covered for the wage and hour division. But we don't want to overwhelm you today, so we'll start with this basic overview. Okay, so this is an overview of responsibilities under New Jersey's wage and hour laws. So the employer is responsible for maintaining records showing payroll, hours, wages, benefits, commissions, etc., paying employees overtime when applicable. And overtime is a very hot topic right now. We're going to talk about that in a few slides. There's a few changes coming from the U.S. Department of Labor on overtime. Paying employees their wages regularly, at least twice a month. Not taking illegal deductions from paychecks. Permitting employees to earn and take sick leave. Not coercing or retaliating against workers if they have a wage complaint. Following specific rules for workers under 18 years old, properly classifying their employees, and this is getting at whether the employee should be classified as an independent contractor or an employee. We'll talk about that a little bit today, but that could easily be its own topic that we could cover at a different webinar. If there's interest in that, you guys can let me know. And last but not least, carrying workers' compensation insurance. So this is a good slide to refer back to just to get an overview of these different topics that we enforce for wage and hour laws in New Jersey. All right, we're going to start things off with New Jersey's minimum wage. So As of January 1st, 2024, New Jersey's minimum wage for most employers is $15.13. There's a few different categories we're going to go through right now, so you'll see it on this chart. For seasonal and small employers is defined as fewer than 6 employees. The current rate is $13.73. For agricultural employers, it's $12.81. The cash wage for tip workers is $5.26. And the wage for long-term care facility direct care staff members is $18.13. And you'll see this note at the bottom that the minimum wage will continue to increase, or may continue to increase, each January 1st based on a measure of inflation. It's tied to the Consumer Price Index, which tracks inflation. I think that's kept by the US Department of Labor. They manage that data. So our minimum wage rate is tied to that inflation statistic. So when you see that 13 cents on the end of January 1st, 2023, January 1st, 2024, that's where it comes from, the inflation adjustment based on the Consumer Price Index and the cost of living, just to keep up with that as prices rise. Yes, so we're going to dive in a little bit deeper and talk about seasonal and small employers and then tipped workers as well, to give you some more background. And I want to mention that we have this chart available for you to print out and download on our website. So you can just grab a thumbtack after you print it out and just hang it up and you'll be good to go. So definitely recommend using this as a resource, and we can share links with you about where to find this minimum wage chart. If it's free, it's always a good option. So if you can print out and download it for free, that's always good. Okay, small employers. Let's dive in a little deeper there. Small employers, remember, it's fewer than 6 employees. So 5 or less. Once you have 6 employees, you're not considered a small employer under the minimum wage law. Sometimes I've heard at different events questions about, does it depend on your revenue? Does that classify you as a small employer? It does not. It depends on how many employees you have, and you have to have fewer than 6. To be a small employer, you have to meet the following 2 requirements. You have to meet both of them. During the current calendar year, fewer than 6 employees for every working day during the majority of the work weeks. And during the previous calendar year, fewer than 6 employees for every working day during at least 48 calendar work weeks. And as we said before, the minimum wage for small employers is $13.73 per hour. Keep in mind, fewer than 6. I think that's really critical information to take away from this slide. All right, seasonal employer. Same rate as the small employer. It's $13.73 per hour, but it's defined differently. Seasonal employer, you want to keep in mind the period of time that your business is open during the year. So the 3 requirements here, and you can meet either of these 3. It's a more of an or question rather than an and question. So if you meet one of these 3 requirements, you could be considered a seasonal employer. The first is services are provided only in a 10-week period from June, July, August, and September. Or during the previous calendar year, at least 2/3 of gross receipts were received in a continuous 16-week period. Or during the previous calendar year, at least 75% of wages paid were for work performed during a single calendar quarter. Does not include labor on a farm. The key thing to remember here is the time period. So the first one's referencing the summer period, 16-week period in the second option, or during a single calendar quarter. A common misconception we hear, I always think about it in the holiday season when you hear about department stores hiring seasonal workers for the holiday season to deal with increases in volume. Under our law, if your store is open all year long, you're not considered a seasonal employer. So even though we might hear that term, seasonal workers, for the holiday season or for the summer season, if your business is open all year, you're not considered a seasonal employer. If you're hiring for the summer season, but you're only open during the summer, say if you're like a beach or boardwalk business, that could be considered a seasonal employer if you meet these requirements. But just really important to remember, if your business is open all year, you are not considered a seasonal employer. It's really just a very limited time period. Okay, now we're going to talk about tipped workers. And for tipped workers, the cash wage plus the tips must equal at least the minimum wage per hour. If the combination is under minimum wage, the employer then must pay the difference. And in 2024, the cash wage is $5.26 per hour, with employers able to claim a $9.87 tip credit. But just to note, if you are one of these businesses that uses tips and your workers are tipped workers, they're typically defined as a part-time temporary worker or full-time worker, part-time temporary or full-time worker who customarily or regularly receives more than $30 in tips per month. So that's the definition of a tip worker. If that applies to your business and you're taking a tip credit, you have to notify that employee in advance about the tip credit. So you have to notify them how much you're going to pay them for the cash wage. It should comply with that $5.26 per hour. And also notify them how much the tip credit is as well. And let them know if there's any tip pool arrangement. So you have to let them know in advance how the tip credit's going to work before you apply the tip credit. This just helps keep them notified, make sure everybody's on the same page about how the tip credit is going to work. So that's a requirement in our laws about the tip credit. Now, if the employer fails to pay the minimum cash wage, they cannot use a tip credit and would need to pay the full minimum wage. And when an employer takes a tip credit, overtime is then calculated on the full minimum hourly wage, not the lower cash wage payment. And we have a great frequently asked questions website here specifically dedicated to tipped workers. So if this applies to your business, I really recommend that you check that out and get some more details on tipped workers. All right, so we are going to move away from minimum wage for now, and we're going to move into record keeping. And this is very important for employers. It's the employer's responsibility in New Jersey to keep records. These records need to include the name of the employee, their address, their rate of pay, gross and net wages, itemized deductions, the mode of payment, the check date or the pay date, and the earned and used sick leave. We're going to talk about sick leave a little bit later, but that is also part of the records that you need to be keeping as an employer. Okay, we can't say it enough. Employers must keep records. Employers need to keep daily and weekly records of the exact hours their employees work each day and within a week. Time records must be true and accurate to the work performed by an employee. And wage and hour records, for the most part, must be kept for 6 years. There's one difference here with the earned sick leave law. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Earned sick leave records have to be kept for 5 years according to that law. But typically, generally speaking, wage and hour records must be kept for 6 years. Okay, wage payment and paycheck deductions. An employer must notify employees of their rate of pay and regular payday upon hiring, notify employees of any changes in rates of pay or paydays prior to those changes taking effect, provide employees with a statement of deductions for each pay period, and pay wages on regular paydays. Really important to notify your employees when things are changing and make sure that they know how much they're being paid, what rate they're being paid, and if there's any deductions being taken out of their paycheck. Employers cannot withhold wages or make illegal deductions. So here we've got an example of a pay stub, and yours might look a little bit different, but these are the basic elements that you need to be including. At the top, we'll see earnings. So we have it broken out here as the paid time off at the bottom, the hourly straight time, hourly overtime. It's really important to keep the straight time and the overtime separate because they're going to be paid at different rates. So we want to make sure we have that listed out so the employee knows what they're being paid and how many overtime hours they might have worked or how many straight time hours they worked. It's good to have the paid time off on there too, so the employees can keep track of their accruals and their usage of earned sick leave. And if you have a PTO policy that exceeds earned sick leave, they can also keep track of where they're at on those vacation days and sick days as well. And you also list the gross and net wages so they know what they're being paid. At the bottom here, we've got payroll deductions. Typically, this is taxes. We want to see like taxes listed out with payroll deductions. Some examples of illegal deductions in this case that should not be taken from a worker's paycheck could include uniforms, breakage, or spillage. That should not be deducted from a worker's paycheck. So typically the payroll deductions tend to be taxes that we see on these paychecks. This is just an example here. I know many of us use different payroll companies or track our payroll a different way, but just make sure you're including those essential elements that we talked about. Okay, this is a hot topic, overtime requirements. There's going to be some changes coming down the pike from the US Department of Labor that are also going to apply in New Jersey. So we're going to go over that today. So generally, I'm sure many of you are familiar with this, but this is a review. Overtime pay for an hourly employee must be 1.5 times, time and a half, the employee's regular rate of pay for every hour worked over 40 hours per week. Now, employers can require their employees to work overtime, but in that case, the employer must pay the appropriate overtime rate. The employer and the employee cannot together agree to violate state overtime laws. So when the employee works more than 40 hours per week, starting with that 41st hour, they must be paid the proper overtime rate. So 1.5 times their regular rate of pay for every hour worked over 40 hours per week. So keep in mind that 1.5 times and 40 hours per week are the really critical thresholds and calculations to remember as an employer. Okay, this is the hot topic, overtime exemptions. So there are two types of salaried employees. We're talking about salaried employees here, exempt and non-exempt. In order to be considered exempt from overtime, an employee must meet the individual criteria for the specific exemption that the employer is claiming. So these exemptions come from the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act, and that law will lay out the requirements for each of these individual exemptions. They're different categories, I would say. So to give you some examples, you may have heard of these before: the executive exemption, professional, administrative, outside sales, skilled mechanics, limousine drivers, certain trucking industry employees, labor on a farm engaged in agricultural work, computer professionals, etc. They're all explained in the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act. So I would point you towards reading that law to really understand what these exemptions entail. So sometimes they're called 541 exemptions. That's the section of the Fair Labor Standards Act that this is laid out in. If you heard that before, this is what we're talking about, or you might have heard executive, professional, administrative exemptions before. That is another commonly used name for this. I think the key thing for employers to remember is that there are very specific requirements for these exemptions. So you really need to read up on these exemptions and make sure your employees match that definition before you exempt them from overtime. We see a lot of issues that way of people exempting salaried employees without meeting those requirements. We're going to go into more detail about it too. It should be noted that exemptions should be claimed and granted. So there's a process for this. First, you want to read up on the law, make sure that your employees meet those requirements. And if you're claiming them as exempt from overtime, make sure you note that, keep that in your records too, just so that, if there's ever any questions about it, you're able to justify it and know exactly where it came from, that you read it in the Fair Labor Standards Act and that they met those requirements. So this is the common misconception we want to clear up. So just because an employee is salaried or has the title of a manager does not mean that they are exempt from overtime. So typically we want to see those job duties to match the administrative or executive, those specific categories that we had mentioned before. So to give you some more details about this, all overtime exemptions must meet the requirements of the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act. And this really breaks down into 3 tests. Employees need to meet each of these tests to be considered exempt from overtime. The first is that they're paid with a salary. They're working on a salary basis. So if your employee is salaried, that's the first part of the test, but there's more to it. Next, they need to be making a minimum weekly salary amount. And this is the key part that's changing on July 1st. We're going to talk about this in the next slide. But this amount is going to be increasing. So you need to keep abreast of what that salary threshold is and make sure that your employee meets that requirement. The last is the job duties. So you want to have a really clear picture of what kind of work your employee is doing and make sure that it matches the job duties of those specific exemption categories in the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act. And on July 1st, 2024, the US Department of Labor's new rule will increase the minimum weekly salary threshold for overtime exemptions. And this rule will also apply in New Jersey. So for the most part, our overtime laws and overtime exemptions mirror what's in the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act. So this new rule is going to apply to us as well in New Jersey. And here it is. It's taking effect starting on July 1st, 2024. So about 10 days away, give or take, next month, July 1st. The minimum salary level is going to increase as part of this new overtime rule. So currently, this minimum threshold is $684 per week, which translates into $35,568 annually. So an employer who's making above this amount could be exempted from or employee who's making above this amount could be exempted from overtime. If they're making under this amount, they could not be exempted. But this is going to change on July 1st. So it's going to go up to $844 per week, for $43,888 annually. So that increase will take effect in July. And then there's an additional increase coming on January 1st, 2025, which will increase to $1,128 per week, $58,656 annually. So really keep in mind, if this applies to any of your employees, make sure you're reading up on the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act. Be aware of these new salary amounts. This is a weekly salary amount, so make sure you're calculating it based on the weekly salary amount of your employee. And starting on January 1st, 2027, and every 3 years after, the USDOL will adjust the salary thresholds based on updated wage data. And we've got a great website linked here. We got this information from the USDOL, from their website. So please go online and check it out if this applies to your business. They have a great webinar too that explains this in more detail. I just have this one slide here just to give you the most critical information, but they can really go into more depth if you click on that link, watch the webinar. They've been doing a lot of outreach and education to employers too at the federal level, at the US Department of Labor, to make sure employers are aware of this change that's going to be coming soon. Oh, and just to mention, this is the only part of the overtime exemption law that's going to be changing right now. So just the salary level is that's going to change on July 1st. The job duties and the salary basis part of it will not change. Okay, moving away from overtime, we're going to talk about earned sick leave. Always a hot topic for employers. It's been in effect for a little over 5 years now. We're always making sure that we can educate and make sure that everybody's up to date on this law too. Full-time, part-time, temporary workers, and minors are all eligible for earned sick leave, and this law applies to employers of all sizes. So there's no size requirement or time of year requirement. It applies to seasonal workers. It applies to small businesses as well. Workers accrue 1 hour of earned sick leave for every 30 hours worked, up to a maximum of 40 hours per year. Or employers can provide employees with 40 hours of leave up front. Existing paid time off policies used to satisfy earned sick leave must meet or exceed the law's requirements. Now, the coverage of this law is very broad. Employees can use sick time to care for themselves or for a family member. And the definition of family is very generous. So you can use our website to learn more about who's considered family under the law. You can use it for physical/mental illness or wellness care, to cope with domestic or sexual violence, or to attend a meeting at a child's school. These are just some of the reasons an employee could use earned sick leave. There's more information at our website. It's called mysickdays.nj.gov. And this is more about notice and documentation requirements. An employer may require 7 days advance notice when an employee has planned to use sick leave. So this would be an example of like a doctor's appointment for wellness care. The employee should know, they should be scheduling it in advance. They could provide you with that advance notice. If an employee's need for earned sick leave cannot be planned, an employer may require the employee to give notice as soon as it's practical. So this would be waking up with a fever. It's unexpected. You can't go into work that day. You need to call out sick the morning of. So that would not require advance notice, but they could call in and say that they're using earned sick leave. Employers cannot retaliate against employees for requesting or using earned sick leave. An employer is not permitted to require an employee to find coverage when using earned sick leave or to make up the hours. And you can learn more at mysickdays.nj.gov. We've got plenty of frequently asked questions that are answered on that website. To talk about record keeping, for earned sick leave, employers must keep and maintain records for 5 years. Needs to include hours worked, earned sick leave, accrued, advanced, used, paid out, and carried over. And records must be made available to NJDOL if requested. Employers must give each employee written notice of their right to earn sick leave, including accrual and use of sick leave, and the right to file a complaint and be free from retaliation. Employers must display the NJDOL earned sick leave poster where all employees can see it. And this can also be downloaded for free on our website. I'm going to show you the poster in the next slide. Unused sick leave can be carried over or bought back by the employer, and up to 40 hours can be carried over per benefit year. The benefit year is the 12-month period that you set up as an employer for employees to use earned sick leave. So they can start accruing at the beginning of that benefit year, and you can choose whether to buy it back or have the employees carry it over at the end of that 12-year period. Or, 12-month period. Okay, this is the poster, required earned sick leave poster. Employees are required to display this poster where all employees can see it. So a bulletin board is great if that's within view of all employees. And if you have an intranet for your business and all employees have access to it, you can post it online too. And you can download and print this out for free. We also have it in other languages too. So if you need it in another language, it's available at our website. Okay, just going to briefly mention misclassification. We're nearing the end of this presentation, so thank you all for your attention so far and sticking with us. I know it's a lot of information. Misclassification is the practice of not properly classifying a worker as an employee. This can take the form of identifying the worker as an independent contractor, or simply not identifying the worker as either an employee or independent contractor by paying the worker off the books. This has been a very hot topic recently with the gig economy. Many businesses in those industries have a lot of confusion over misclassification. In New Jersey, we use what's called the ABC test to define whether a worker is an employee or an independent contractor. It's really important that employers read up on that ABC test and understand how that applies to their workers. There are very high penalties for misclassification, so we take this very seriously at the New Jersey Department of Labor. But we could do another presentation in the future to dive more deeply into this topic. But we'll make sure to share the frequently asked questions link for you about misclassification if that's something that is relevant for your business. Okay, so we've talked about compliance with all of these different laws. In the case where there is a wage and hour complaint, employees can file a complaint in case of improper record keeping, failure to pay minimum wage and overtime, illegal deductions, failure to provide payment for earned sick leave, misclassification, and retaliation, which could include threats or actual acts of retaliation. So let's talk about what is retaliation. We have very strong laws in New Jersey that protect against retaliation. Also federally, there are strong laws against retaliation. Retaliation occurs when an employer penalizes an employee for asserting certain workplace-related rights, such as the right to be paid minimum wage or to be paid earned sick time. Retaliation can take many forms, including but not limited to getting fired, a poor performance review, changed salary, increased oversight on job duties, changed workplace responsibilities, or being denied a raise or promotion. And workers have the right to learn about their rights, to question how those rights are being applied to them, to report violations of those rights, and to demand those rights without interference from their employer in asserting those rights. So just to emphasize, want to make sure that workers are protected and employers are compliant with our wage and hour laws in New Jersey. Okay, so that is the end of my presentation. I'll turn it back over to the hosts so we can do a Q&A. I'll do my best to answer any questions you might have today. If there's any specific case-related questions, I might not be able to give you a direct answer on that, but we can try to find some more information that might apply to it. So yes, so we'll make sure to take back any questions that we don't get to today and research them and send them back to you after the presentation's over, probably sometime next week. So I'll turn it back over to you, Uzma. I'll stop sharing too.
No, it's okay. You can continue sharing just in case you have to go back to the slides for any of the questions.
Okay. Yeah, I might keep it off for now just so I can see the chat too.
No problem.
Thanks.
Well, first of all, you did great. Thank you so much, Nicole.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. And you have two feedback for you. Stacy said this is such a useful seminar, and Judy said you're a great presenter, Nicole, and we couldn't agree more.
Thank you so much. That
really
means
are.
a lot. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and then before we jump right into the questions, we'll go to them in the order that we received them. Just a quick reminder for our audience. This webinar is being recorded. If you missed any part of it, even a minute, it will be available on our YouTube channel, as well as our video library. The links have been shared in the chat, but we'll just reshare them, just so everyone can see it in the chat, or if you just scroll back a bit. And if you'd like to receive the slides that Nicole just presented on, then please go ahead and fill out the survey and you'll receive them. It is a quick Google form. You just give your feedback. As soon as you hit submit, you'll get the link to the slides. All right, perfect. So we'll go to the questions that we received in the Q&A box. And at the end, if we have time, we'll go through the chat because I remember we did get a couple in the chat. All right, first is from Wanda. Wanda asks, long-term care staff and home care staff are not the same. Can you please clarify for the wages? And this is when you were showing the table for the wages.
Oh, yes. Yeah, the minimum wage chart.
Mhm.
I'm going to take this question back just so that we can research it and go through the definition to be sure that we give you the right answer on that one. I see where the question's coming from, and I just want to make sure we can, clarify those terms and get those the definitions for you. So my colleague,
Yep.
Jordan Ortiz, is on the call today. He's working with us at the Wage and Hour Division, so he's going to be taking back those questions to research. So we'll get that answer for you. We'll look through the
No
law and
problem.
make sure we can clarify definitions.
Awesome. So we can take another question in the meantime then? Okay, perfect. Next question is from Lisa. Lisa asks, does minimum exempt salary include commissions?
That's a great question too. I'm going to take that one back as well because we can give you more information about commissions. I think there's a special way that they're calculated in terms of salaries. Now, minimum exempt salary, I just want to make sure I'm getting the terms right because I know we talked about exemptions in terms of overtime. Are we talking about like minimum wage on this question, or are we talking about overtime more, or both? Could we get maybe some clarity on the question, maybe from Lisa if she's able to put into the chat, just so we make sure we research it correctly.
Yeah, our attendees are able to. So Lisa, the question that you asked, you can send a follow-up on that. So definitely do that.
Yeah, I'll
For
put my email in
clarification.
the chat too, just so people have it. But you can always send it out to USMA and the NJSBDC crew as well after the presentation.
Yep. All right. And that is Nicole's email. Perfect. We'll go to the next question. Anonymous, how does the Earned Sick Leave Act and additional PTO policies work together? Do you have to specify a difference in vacation and sick leave, or can it just be PTO?
Okay, yep, I see where that question's coming from too. So what we talked about in the presentation was that if you have an existing PTO policy, it has to either meet or exceed the Earned Sick Leave Act. So the Earned Sick Leave Act is 40 hours per benefit year, 1 hour for every 30 hours worked. So if your PTO policy exceeds that, that would be great. If you're meeting that requirement too, that's also great. We're really concerned if you're under that requirement, you need to make sure you're in compliance with the law. It's a great question about how they interact with each other, specifically if it would be better to differentiate it, as you're tracking, if you're using a payroll software or just tracking it for your own records. I'm going to take that question back too and just see if our law says anything about that. That might be up to the discretion of the employer if there's a way to if it helps the employer to kind of keep things separate. That might be where it falls in line, but I just want to make sure I have that accurately for you. But I think as long as you're meeting or exceeding the earned sick leave, 40 hours of sick leave per year, you should be good to go.
Got it. Thank you. And we'll for everyone wondering on how we'll get the questions and the answers back to you, we'll work something out with Nicole, but I think what
Yeah.
will work the best is we'll just send out an email to all our attendees.
Mhm.
So just a post webinar follow-up to everyone who attended. And basically all the questions will be listed, the answers will be listed, and we'll do our best to get to you as soon as possible. All right, so in the meantime, we'll keep just moving, and Nicole, you just let us know what you're able to answer now.
Sure.
participate in.
Yeah, I'll do my best. I don't have everything, on the top of my head, but I'll try my best based on the information I have. And we have
Yep,
plenty of resources and supervisors at our department.
yep,
When we've researched the questions, we'll get you the correct answer. We want to make sure we send out accurate information for everyone.
exactly. Understandable. Next question is, let's see. Okay, from Anonymous. Is it better to keep PTO and sick leave time tracked separately? How do you best handle employees who regularly use time off prior to accruing it?
Yeah, that's a good question too. A little similar to the last one, but the last part of the question is really interesting about regularly using time off prior to accruing it. In the law, we have that accruement, the accrual requirement that it's 1 hour per every 30 hours, 1 hour for every 30 hours worked, is how they would accrue it. But the employer can choose to provide it up front, the 40 hours. So when we talked about the benefit year, that's the 12 month, not 12-year, 12-month period where you set as the employer, it's up to your discretion to set that benefit year and put that in your earned sick leave policy. So you could provide it when the year starts up front, or at any point during the year. You could, advance those 40 hours so that the employees have them at the beginning of the year, or you could have them accrue it. It is up to the employer to choose whether to accrue it or advance it. So that is up to the employer's discretion. I'm a bit confused about how they use time off prior to accruing it. I think it would really depend on your policy as an employer of if you choose to have them accrue it versus like giving it to them up front. I'm not quite sure what your particular circumstance is if you give it to them up front, because then they wouldn't have to accrue it if you already advanced it to them for the 40 hours. Yeah, I think we'll take this one back too, just to get some more details. But if Anonymous, I know I don't see your name here, but if you want to reach out to me separately over my email, or if you want to add a little bit more detail, that would be helpful, just to kind of get a sense of what your policy is and how employees are using that earned sick leave.
Yep.
I want to say too that there is a waiting period for the earned sick leave. We didn't have this on the slide. It's a bit more detail. You'd find it on our website, but there's a 120-day waiting period for the earned sick leave. Like when a new employee starts, it's up to the employer. You could waive it. They could start accruing sick leave right away, but there is also 120-day waiting period if the employer chooses to apply that as well. Or actually, let me correct that. They start accruing sick leave right away, but to use it, there's a 120-day waiting period.
Understood. Thank you. Next question is from Trey. Are small or any employers required to pay overtime premium pay on a federal or state holiday?
That's a good question too. I don't think we have specific laws on like double pay on holiday. That's not in our state laws. I know I've heard of that before, but no, I think our overtime laws in New Jersey are based on how many hours an employee works per week. So we talked about the 40 hours per week as the overtime threshold. So if an employee is working 40 hours per week on a holiday or weekend, it still applies. It's time and a half applied to those, any hours over 40. So I don't think it matters if it's a federal or state holiday, but your individual business handbook or policy may be a little bit different if you have something more generous than what the law applies. But in New Jersey, the overtime law is pretty standard. It's time and a half for any hours over 40 worked within 1 week, or one work week, depending on when your work week starts and ends at your business. It may vary between different businesses, but you set your work week, and that would be the 40 hours within there. If they work anything over 40 hours, it'd be time and a half, as long as they're not exempted, and the exemptions we talked about today.
Great, thank you. So that's been answered. Next question is from Sandra. Telehealth in New Jersey when businesses are registered in a different state. That is a little confusing for me. Nicole, I'm not sure if you got that, but I will ask.
Yeah,
Sandra to
I would want a
expand.
little bit more details.
Yeah.
Do you have offices in New Jersey? Like, where do your employees work? I think that would be really helpful to know. If we could get some more details either in the chat, or if you could email me directly, that would be really helpful. So we'll take that one back.
Yep. And I just want to, okay, so earlier Lisa had asked the question, does minimum exempt salary include commissions? And I think she followed
Oh,
up
the
with
outside
saying,
sales. Yeah,
yeah,
okay,
and
I see
exempt
now.
employees as in salesperson, does this
Yeah,
include commission?
that was one of the categories for the overtime exemptions. I'm going to take that one back and research it too, just because I want to make sure it jives with the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act. Yeah, that's not NJDOL's law, so I want to make sure I can research it and make sure everything matches up between our state laws and federal laws too, and then the calculations for commissions. But that's really helpful to know that you're thinking of that outside sales in terms of the overtime exemption. I definitely would recommend just taking a look at the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act or going on to that webinar I mentioned on the USDOL website. The link is in the PowerPoint slide, and just reviewing that just to get some more details about what that outside sales exemption would entail for an employee, to make sure the job duties match, make sure the weekly salary threshold matches, and that person's being paid on a salary basis. That was the 3 parts of the overtime test.
Got it, thank you. Next question is from Mark. Does the employer have to pay out the accrued sick leave when they leave the company after 1+ years of carrying over?
That's a good question too. I'm going to take that one back as well. Sorry to keep saying I'm taking them back. I just really want to make sure we get the correct information for you. Sometimes it may depend. You want to keep in mind your employer handbook too. I'll make sure I get you the information about what the law specifically says for earned sick leave. But make sure it applies with your employer handbook too. I would say, think of your handbook with that question. That's where mine's kind of going to. I know sometimes employers have different policies about paying out sick leave once an employee leaves the business. And in some cases, if there is a question or there's a violation, like, we will refer back to that employer handbook. So that's just something important to document. But I want to make sure I get you the information from the law specifically to make sure what you have in your handbook is, matches up with that, and to make sure it's in compliance. It's not required for employers to have a handbook, but I think it's a good practice. I think just in terms of documentation, if it's ever a situation where the worker's saying one thing, but you have a different perspective, and say if your policy is just something verbal, we don't really have a lot of evidence to go off of there. So put it in your employer handbook so that it's written and documented for evidence. I think it's just a good way to cover your bases. Gets everybody on the same page too for the employees.
Yep. I see a couple of questions that are a bit detailed.
Okay.
And I know, Nicole, you mentioned that, that just to be respectful of everyone's time, as well as just making sure that we're not going into too much detail, since it might be case by case. So those questions, we will leave for now, and those can be emailed. And we'll make sure that Nicole will get you these questions just in case there are any that are missed. But as Nicole mentioned, her email address is in the chat.
Yep.
So if something is left unaddressed, and you want to reach out to Nicole, please email her. All right, so there is one. If a company does not pay sick day, are there any laws that exist for that act?
I would say if the company is based in New Jersey and has workers working in New Jersey, the earned sick leave law is required. So they would have to be paying, or they'd have to comply with that law. So workers would have to be able to be accruing that earned sick leave 1 hour for 40 hours worked, or 1 hour for 30 hours worked. Sorry about that. Got a little ahead of myself. Or the 40 hours in advance at the beginning of the benefit year. So either they accrue it or they get 40 hours up front. 40 hours is the max for each year for earned sick leave. I would say that earned sick leave would apply to most companies in New Jersey. Doesn't matter about size. Small businesses are still have to comply with the law. Doesn't matter about revenue either. There's a few exemptions, but they're pretty limited. Most private companies, I don't think it would apply to. It could apply to like a public employer if they already have a sick leave policy in their union collective bargaining contract. Some construction industry employers also that would typically fall under a union too. I can share some of those exemptions to the earned sick leave law, but they're pretty limited. I would say for most private companies, earned sick leave is going to apply to your business. And it's really important if you need to be giving those earned sick leave hours as your employee accrues them. You need to be doing the documentation to keep those records about the accruals and the usage. And you need to notify your employees about earned sick leave.
So basically, if a company is not paying for sick day leaves, then they're not being compliant with the law.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. I think that's the answer Orlando's looking for.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the question's more specifically talking about payment for sick days or not. Like providing sick hours. That might be good if we get some clarification on that, because there's a few different parts in the law about payment versus like the accruals. So we can get some more details about payment for sick days too. Just as I'm reading it again, I see no pay. So that might be implying more about the pay.
Yeah.
But the earned sick leave law applies to most private businesses. So I would definitely recommend reading up on it and making sure you're in compliance.
Got it. Good point. All right. So next question, and we are almost close. We are hitting 1 p.m. In 2 minutes. So we'll be mindful of the questions and the time. All right. So next question is from Fernando. Can sick leave be taken all at once? That is, if an employee has 3 full days of sick leave, can they take them consecutively without providing a medical certificate? Can these days be used for any personal matters?
Okay, this is a good question. There's a few different questions in one here. I'll try to take them one piece at a time. So can sick leave be taken all at once? Our law says that the employer has discretion about the increments that an employee can use earned sick leave. So read up on the earned sick leave law. That specific provision talks about the increments when you can use earned sick leave. I think it depends on like the shifts the employees work too. So I would definitely direct you to our website, mysickdays.nj.gov. We'll also put this in the research document that we create, going into more details about these answers. But off the top of my head, I know that our law talks about the increments being up to the discretion of the employer, generally for shifts where earned sick leave is used. If an employee has 3 full days of sick leave, can they take them consecutively without providing a medical certificate? This talks about documentation. I believe in our law it says starting at 3 days. So anything less than 3 days, I don't think they have to provide a doctor's note, but 3 days or more, they can provide you a doctor's note. Just want to double check that, make sure it's exactly where 3 days falls on that time period, see whether it's included as one where they don't have to provide a document note or a doctor's note, or if it's one where they would have to. But that's typically the threshold is 3 days for the documentation. Shorter term leaves like 1 day, 2 days, I don't think they have to provide a doctor's note. They always can, but you can't require it. Typically longer term leave, they would have to provide some kind of notification. You could ask them to provide that. Can these days be used for any personal matters? That's all defined in the law. I think I mentioned a few broad categories of a personal illness or a family member's illness. Definition of family is very broad. So go to our website and see everyone who can be defined as family under the law. Could also be used for wellness care or mental illness care, preventative care, like a doctor's appointment could be another reason. A school event or some kind of activity at school, if you're requested by a school staff member, could be another reason too. So those are broadly the categories that we use for earned sick leave. But it could be, there could be more. I would look at the mysickdays.nj.gov website. We can provide you a more detailed list when we send you the answers to these questions in more detail. I know Jordan's going to be busy doing some research. It'll be a good learning opportunity. So we'll get those answers out to you.
So thank you. And then we'll just take a couple more. So let's see, just quickly going through them. As I mentioned, some of the questions that we may not answer, apologies, but would just of interest of everyone's time.
Yeah, we'll bring them back. We'll make sure.
Yeah, we'll definitely answer them.
Yeah.
We'll email them out to you, or if you'd like, you can email Nicole.
Yeah.
All right, and a lot of these are case by case, so we just, don't want to go into a lot of detail. All right, Mark had said, just want to know how to write my new employer handbook policy. So I'm wondering if there's like a template or something that can be provided or something.
Thanks. Yeah, that's a great question. We don't have anything currently at the moment. I can also share with you, we have like a one-pager employer's guide to wage and hour laws. That might just be some good background information to kind of distill the topics we talked about today. It's not ready for public consumption yet, but currently one of the projects I'm working on is to create like a model handbook or like kind of like a template that employers can use. So we're working on that now. It still has to go through our like communications and legal process. It'd probably take a while before it's available. But I'm sure there's a lot of templates out there. Maybe some payroll companies might have some ideas. It's not, a magic bullet to use like a payroll question or a payroll service. For a handbook, there may be some things that apply differently if they're a national company, depending on state labor laws. But that might be a good place to get started, and then use this presentation to fill in the gaps and the employer's guide that we'll share out. I'll share that with Uzma, just to kind of fill in the more state-specific laws, because it can be confusing for employers. Sometimes the federal and state laws can be a little bit different. Typically, the highest standard applies. So if the federal law is more strict than the state law, the federal would apply, or if the state is more strict than federal, state would apply. So a good example is minimum wage. Our minimum wage is $15.13, which is more than the federal minimum wage, which is $7.25 currently. So in that case, ours is stronger than the federal minimum wage. So our minimum wage applies. Same with earned sick leave. At the federal level, they don't have earned sick leave. We do. Ours is stronger. So earned sick leave applies for New Jersey employers. Just a few examples, just to kind of get you in the mindset of comparing federal and state labor laws. It can be a bit of a puzzle sometimes. So I understand where employers are coming from, and we want to try to fill in those gaps.
Got it. And just to piggyback off of that just a little bit, I'm not sure if we consult on or if we provide templates or anything like that on employee policy handbooks and stuff, but I do know that we do have a consultant who advises on HR, so that sort of crosses intersections, and that we've done webinars on HR, so if you're ever interested.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's part of the Employers Association of NJ, just to kind of give them a shout out. We've done a lot of great work with them. They work with a lot of HR professionals. If you're a member of that organization, not that we're, saying to join, we can't give anybody a plug, but that might just be a good place to look, like as a resource. They typically do webinars. There are many other groups that do a similar kind of outreach and education to employers or HR professionals. So definitely keep your eyes open. Chambers of Commerce might be able to connect you. I saw Anthony Martinez is here, my good friend from the Business Action Center. So I'm sure they could help connect you too.
Yep, exactly.
and check out business.nj.gov. That's the Business Action Center's website.
Yes,
and
exactly.
They use a lot of the same language that we use. We collaborate with them. So that's like a one-stop shop for business owners. You can always go to our website for more details, but they do a great job. They have a chat feature too. I think he mentioned it. In our chat as well. So we don't have a chat at DOL, but the Business Action Center has a great chat that you can talk to some of the business reps there. And Anthony does a great job. So shout out to him and the whole team, Melanie Willoughby and Don Newman at the Business Action Center. I hope to see you guys at another event soon.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was just going to give Anthony and NJSBDC a shout out because they're one of our biggest partners and sponsors too. So definitely check NJBAC out. And as we had mentioned earlier, NJEDA as well.
Yes,
not
EDA
into
too.
this space exactly, maybe with the employee handbook and stuff, but great for we all work together in this space. So it's always cool to borrow from this and take from that and work together, collaborate. All right, so we'll just take two more questions, and we'll just go very quickly because I saw similar questions come in, and this is from Stephanie. And just to address part of her question, saying if customers give tips, let me just say the entire thing. For a convenience store, quick serve restaurant, employees with minimum wage per hour earn over $15 per hour. If customers are giving tips, how are they supposed to divide the tips for the employees?
That's a great question too. I want to bring that one back so we can really like think through the calculations there and make sure that we get you the right information. That's more of a case by case question. So I'm gonna run that by my supervisor. He's really knowledgeable about tipped workers and calculating those payments. So I definitely want to share that with him. So we're gonna add that to our research list. Bear with us as we get those answers. Some may be easier for us to answer. Some might take a little bit more digging, but we'll make sure to get it to you timely. I'm going to be out of the office a few days next week on vacation, but Jordan will be working on some of those research questions to get things rolling on that when I come back next week.
Got it. And one last question that we'll take is from Amanda. This information has been so helpful. Does your division do more trainings like this available to the public?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm really glad, Amanda, that this was really valuable for you. That's our goal, is really to just kind of demystify and clarify these wage and hour laws, because you'll read it, in the legalese, and it can be pretty confusing. So we want to make it more accessible and put it in plain language. More trainings. So typically we do trainings if we get invites from SBDC, groups like this, chambers of commerce. If you're part of a chamber of commerce currently, or any kind of business group, feel free to reach out to me. I love to connect with like businesses, business programs, business groups, and do different kind of seminars or sessions. Depends on our availability too. We have a small outreach team, so our capacity is a little bit limited by our resources. But if we're able to fit it within our schedule, webinars are usually good because they're very easy for us to set up. Doesn't usually take a lot of resources. We could do in-person presentations too, but that would just depend on availability and staffing. Yes, you'll usually see us connecting on trainings with like business groups. Also, we do in-person presentations for chambers of commerce and other business organizations. You may see us at community events. So I know I'm going to, if anybody's in South Jersey, this is a good plug for an event that I'm coming to in a few weeks. South Jersey in Voorhees on July 13th, Saturday. There's going to be a small business expo. I think the SBDC is also involved in that one too, or the Small Business Administration. We're going to have a table there, so we'll have some information to share with you. Congressman Norcross is having a constituent fair on July 22nd. I'm going to be there too. We also want to reach out to diverse groups of businesses. So we're going to be at the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Business Expo. I believe it's July 18th. So we have a busy summer. Yeah, Wanda, I see you're close to Voorhees. Come on out. It's going to be from like 10 to 5, I think. It's a all-day event. A lot of good activities going on. I'm sure EDA will be there too, I think. I think I saw them on the vendors list. So there'll be a lot of good groups there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
you can meet me in
awesome.
person. I'd love to see you guys. And if you come, just let me know you came to the webinar and what you thought of it. Oh, Anthony, okay, plan on attending, but we'll not have a table. Cool. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
we'll see you there. We'll have a table, so you can feel free to stop by. And if you want to give us anything to share, we can put it on our table too.
Yeah. And the best way to keep up to date with a lot of the organizations and such is to stay connected on socials. So
Yeah.
Nicole, I see that you have your, the logos, the social logos, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Yes.
You should always, keep up to date and stay up to date with the socials, stay connected. So as well as NJSBDC, NJBC, NJEDA, NJDOL, everyone.
Yeah, the alphabet soup of all
The alphabet soup, all the acronyms
departments.
that you could ever think of.
Yeah.
All right, so that concludes our Q&A session. Nicole, seriously appreciate you being here.
Yeah, anytime. Happy to come
yeah.
back if you guys want to like dig deeper into
Yeah.
misclassification, child labor, working papers. We could even bring in other divisions. We could bring in like career services. Yeah, anything that you guys are interested in, just give me a shout. And always happy to connect with the SBDC. We appreciate the work that you guys do.
Thank you, thank you. And I want to tell our audience that if you want to see Nicole again on another different topics, the best thing or the best way to let us know that you would like to see Nicole again, that was a little bit of a mouthful, but please complete our survey. That's why we have our surveys there. We follow we take a look at our responses and we tailor our curriculum, webinar topics and curriculum based on that. So if you want to see Nicole again, please let us know on what topics. We can come up with a webinar topic and then have that and invite Nicole and Jordan again. All right, so let me just share my screen once more. And there it is. We've done this already. Q&A and upcoming webinars. So we'll have session 28 of Mastering NJ Business Registration with the NJSBDC. We've been doing this webinar series since I believe November, December of last year. It's been a great success. And it's really to help any aspiring entrepreneurs to get registered with the state of New Jersey. So if you're interested, if you have a family member, friend, anyone who would like to register their business, form a legal entity, then check this out, refer this to them. And that is it from us today. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, NJDOL. Thank you all for attending. We really appreciate it. It was very engaging today. Everyone's support, everyone's responses was great. And we hope to see you at the next webinar. And we hope to see you, Nicole, for a next webinar with you, whenever that will be.
Thanks. Yeah, I'd be honored. Just reach out to me anytime and we'll set it up.
Yep. All right. Bye. Take care.
Have a good day. Good weekend coming up
Bye.
too.
Yep. Bye.